Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we're just going to do a cheeky little range review for the Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights, available from Games Workshop. Not the Forge World ones, we're going to take a look at those in a separate video because that is going to be a massive long video in and of itself. The variety, the range, the girth, the sheer size of the lads is on a slightly different scale to the Games Workshop ones, but the Games Workshop ones are solid. Of course, some I like more than others, and as is tradition, I've started with my least favourite here, which in a way is unfair. After all, how can the Armigers / War Dogs, if you're playing Chaos, how do they really stack up to a full-sized knight? It's a bit of an unfair comparison. They're little mini ones, they're little escort knights, they're little support knights, they're not the full beefy chunky knights, and so it's natural that you probably not have quite the same level of love that you do for the big proper ones. That being said, the design of them is really cool and it is nice and consistent. They have this like little squat thing going on that actually pretty nicely matches the bigger knights. It's just because of the smaller scale of them that they look a bit more hunchback, a little bit more kind of squatted down, like they're retreating into their own shoulders. I do like them overall. There's a couple of just minor, like, nitpicky things though that make me not like them as much as, say, the big ones. The chainsword on the not the Helverins, the other ones, these ones. Which ones are these? The Warglaves, that's it. I always forget what they're called. The big chain swords on the Warglaves, just they don't quite do it for me, just because they seem a little bit stubby, a little bit short. It's one of those things where you look at it and I'm not entirely sure who those are supposed to be hitting. Is it the top of infantry? Is it the knees and an upper thigh of enemy knights? Is it the sort of kind of side of a tank? Like, there's a weird stubbiness to them. I feel like they could do being a little bit longer, or perhaps the arms being a little bit longer, but then that would maybe look a bit weird, so would you then need to raise them up at the waist? It's one of those things where the squat nature of them I quite like, but then the squat nature of them seems to be interfering a little bit with that melee weapon. The guns on them I have absolutely no issue with. I like the guns on them a lot. I like especially the Helverins. The two autocannons. I really like that. Admittedly, my War Dogs don't look like that. I've, of course, modified them so that the autocannons are both on the same arm, just because asymmetry is fun. Really, there's no other reason for it. I will say the only other thing I'm not sure about with these guys, and something that puts them down a bit in terms of how much I like them compared to the rest of the range, is the heads. There is no particular head on these models that I absolutely love. And it's because there's that lack of kind of ornamental faceplate that you get on the Imperial and Chaos Knights. There's a lack of decoration going on there, which, I mean, to be fair, does kind of make sense. These are not like the full fat knights, and as such they're not going to have as much ornamentation, as much decoration. They're not going to be as important as the larger steeds, so to speak. But the heads just don't quite do it for me, and there's no single one that I've looked at and gone, yes, that's the one I like. They're all just like varying levels of, yeah, that'll do. Which is a shame, because I feel like they could do with just that little bit extra personality. I think it would just bring them in line a little bit more. Now, there is, of course, the option of trying to take, say, the face off one of these and stick it on, but that wouldn't work. They would be far too chunky and big, which I did experiment with, but funnily enough, a head that size does not fit on a model that size. It looks like they've got the big head mod from, like, Unreal Tournament or something. It's not a great look. Doesn't work. Overall, like them, but there's just a few little things that prevent me from loving them, including the gun on the top of the carapace, which I have to admit, no guns on top of the carapace for these for me. They are all going on the arms because it just looks weird and stubby and like it wouldn't work all that well. It looks fragile. Shouldn't look fragile. That's not a good thing. Don't like that it looks fragile. Now, next up is these chunky boys, the Castellan and the other one, whose name I always forget, the Valiant. These I should love. I do like them a lot. Both the Castellan and the Valiant, I do like them a lot. They're cool models. They are kind of silly in the best possible way. They are fully gunned up. They have so many weapons, it's unreal. But there's a couple of things, again, that just prevent me from loving them as much as, frankly, the original Knights and the Chaos Knights. And that is, firstly, the size of them. For how many guns they have, for the amount of armament that they carry, they feel like they should be bigger than they are. They're not that much bigger than a like a warden or a gallant or a paladin or a crusader or a preceptor. They're not actually that much bigger, and they feel like they should be. You've got like 2 twin battle cannons up the top. You've got 2 like multi-melters. You've got the crazy like massive plasma cannon and the other thing. Like, they should be standing taller and broader. And they're not actually that much taller. And they're not actually that much broader. And so it kind of feels like, to me, like they're on almost like a slightly smaller scale, even though they're not. Now, there are ways around this. There are ways to fix this, to be honest, which don't require a huge amount of effort and I think are totally worth doing. Like, I've seen people bulk out the waist so that the torso sits higher. Now, you could do that either with there's an Etsy shop that I'll put a link in the description to, where you can get spacers for the waist and the legs. You can do it that way. You can also build your own. Now, with a bit of careful sawing, you can take that ball joint at the waist there. You can build it up slightly, and you can build round it. Like, you can kind of bulk it out, either using plasticard. You could maybe use green stuff if you wanted to be a bit adventurous, although plasticard would be a lot easier. You can then fill that kind of blank space around the centre with things like cables and wires. There's a lot you can do to kind of fill out the bit between the torso and the waist to give it that additional height. Same thing with the legs. You can get a kit that kind of spaces the legs up, but you can also do it yourself. You can build up from the feet a little bit, which will give a bit of extra height between the feet and the base of the legs, and you can cut away at the knee joint, and then build that out, either with, you could probably make sense to pin it and then use basically whatever you've got lying around. You could do it with sprues and then cover the gaps with plasticard. There's all sorts of things you could do, but you can make this taller. And the ones that I've seen that have been modified to be that bit taller look a lot better. It looks a lot more suitable for the number of armaments they're carrying. And it makes them feel chunkier and just bigger than the other Imperial Knights, which I think honestly works well, because the amount of stuff they're carrying, like, you haven't just got bigger weapons on the arms. You've got an extra weapon hanging from the carapace, whereas, the Imperial Knights have only got the one. And then you've got the 3 weapons on top of the carapace, whereas an Imperial Knight or a Chaos Knight, you can have 1 on the carapace if you want. You don't even have to take a weapon on the carapace. So this is something that just has that extreme number of weapons, but just doesn't quite have the size to justify it as standard to me. But you can do a lot to change that. You can raise the torso up, you can raise the legs up, and when you do that, it makes them look a lot better. It makes them look more significant and more suited for what they are, to be honest. And yeah, I like them, but they require a bit of work for me to properly bring to the size that I would, that I think they should be. Now, of course, that's just me. It's just a personal preference thing. I've seen plenty of people who have got a bunch of these and they're perfectly happy with how they are. But for me, I just like them to be that bit bigger. Like, have a bigger presence on the field compared to their less massively over weaponized companions. But they are good models. It's like, that's my only real complaint. I like pretty much everything else about them. The changes to the back are really good. You know, it looks like there's more power required and more power being given at the back of these knights. The way they've changed the exhaust to come out the back instead of the top, the kind of additional gubbins here and there. There's a lot to suggest that this requires, you know, just that much more in the way of energy. But the actual size of it doesn't quite match that idea. Otherwise, they are solid. And they've got a harpoon gun. I mean, what you can't complain about that. Of all things, absolutely no complaint about the harpoon gun. It's ridiculous. It's awesome. Now, onto the ones that started it all. The classics, the originals. Always going to have a soft spot of these. These are my second favourite knights that Games Workshop do, because they were the first. They were the first ones. They were like, not the proof of concept, so to speak, but I just couldn't believe they were doing an actual army, even if it wasn't like a massive range, an actual army of like massive war machines. It was one of those things where I didn't even know I wanted this until I saw it, and then I needed it. I just needed it immediately. It was like, what are you guys doing? That's ridiculous and so over the top. And are they not going to be too strong? And I don't even care. I just want to own it. I want to have one. I want to build one. Look at the size of them. They look great. I don't know where you've got the idea from, but I also don't even care, because look at them. They're so good. They still are so good. And then the expansion out to having like is that the Warden? I believe that's the Warden. I get confused as to which knight is which. It really does. It's really all just semantics. They're all just knights. It's fine. Stick whatever weapons combination you want. And don't put 2 Avenger Gatling cannons on, though. That's not allowed. You're not allowed to do that unless you're Chaos, which is why Chaos is best. Yeah. The actual models themselves are great fun to put together. They're really, really easy to assemble. They're one of the nicer kits, I think, overall. I very rarely have an issue with putting them together. I mean, I'm assembling my third one now, and I've really had no problems with any of them at all. The amount of customization you can do with them is ridiculous. The number of like weapons loadouts and combinations that you can have, you know, in terms of armaments is really good. The amount of converting and kit bashing you can do with them is great. They're just a super solid, versatile kit that you can really do pretty much anything you like with. And yeah, I think honestly one of the best kits that Games Workshop has made. Now, I know of course that they are controversial in a way. Like, no one, when I say no one likes the dude that brings all knights, maybe that's a bit harsh, but they can be a pain to deal with, and they can be just a bit over the top in some respects. But when it comes to the modelling side of things, when it comes to like the construction and painting side of the hobby, it's honestly one of my favourite kits by far. You can do so much to customise them. You can do so much to convert them and kit bash them. There's just endless opportunities to mess with them and create things that are properly your own. And that's one of the things I like about it so much. It's not even so much like the actual... I'd say it's not even so much in the actual faction necessarily. It is just how much you can make these 100% yours. That's something that I think cannot be overstated, and it's something that I really, really appreciate in any kit. Being able to just do whatever you like, and being able to mix like Skaven warp lightning cannons and take weapons from other vehicles. And I mean, if you'd like Rue from the community, Warhammer community team, some of his knight conversions are just amazing, and they look great. And because of the nature of them, like the knights themselves, a lot of them are like more believable than you would think. There's this kind of some of them have like a proper kind of experimental feel to them, which again kind of gives you license to just mess with them as much as you like. Add that to the fact that you can go full chaos with them, and really there's just absolutely nothing to complain about. They are great models in every sense of the word for me. Now there is a weird issue with the chaos side of things here. So we won't look at the Chaos, Valiant and Castellan and War Dogs because they're the same. You have to chaos them up yourself. Of course, an easy way to do that is to use the Chaos Vehicles Accessory Sprue, which is actually a little bit trickier to get hold of. I don't believe Games Workshop sells it separately anymore. They used to. Years and years ago, they used to sell that separately. And I loved the fact that they sold it separately because, well, it meant you could buy multiple sprues and you could take any vehicle and turn it to chaos, and that doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. At least last time I checked, you weren't able to. So you do have to do a bit of work on the standard Knight kit to make it chaos, which you have no choice. With the Valiant and Castellan and War Dogs, you have to do that. You sort of have to do it with certain loadouts still, and for that you have this kit, which is just a Paladin, Gallant, Crusader, all the others kit. There's a slight issue with it on the website though, because of course the overall feeling towards this doesn't change because it's chaos and that you have to mess about with it yourself. It's still the same kit, so it's still great. But on the website, it's a bit odd because you've got Knight Despoiler, right? So Knight Despoiler, £95. Of course, it's the same kit as the Preceptor, which also builds all of the others. However, in this specific instance, when you look at the Knight Preceptor Canis Rex, and then you go all the way down, the Knight Preceptor is a Questorius class close-range powerhouse. Its design is intended to exemplify the core tenets of the Code Chivalric in battle. To this end, they are armed with a Reaper Chainsword or Thunderstrike Gauntlet and the rare and terrifying Las Impulsor. Now, I only bring that up because this is the Knight Despoiler, and if we scroll down, it is armed with the rare and terrifying Las Impulsor, which you will note is completely absent from the model that they've built. Now, this is the one that they had for I can't remember the name of the box now, but it was the Chaos Knight versus the Imperial Knight. This is the one from that box. It's got the big gash in the faceplate where they've drilled it out and sawed it a little bit. But the example that they use on the page is not what they tell you it has, which for me, it doesn't affect the model, but it's not even a nitpick. It's just confusing for people. It should just be a case of this model is armed with this, but you can give it this. That's all it should take. Instead, it's got that extra step of complexity, which most of us are absolutely fine with. But if you're not 100% down with how this stuff works, that's just going to be confusing. I will say the paint scheme on this one is awesome, and I still love the way they've made it just that bit chaosy with smashing the face up. Now, of course, you'll be shocked to learn that my absolute favourite knight is the Chaos Knight, the Desecrator and the Rampager. I always want to say Ravager, but I don't know where I've got that from. I love these things. I love them. Admittedly, the one with the Thunderstrike Gauntlet and the Chainsword, in terms of the promotional pictures, the ones that you see on the website, that's my favourite of the two. But I remain impressed by the way that these have been done. They are so clearly chaos whilst also being clearly Imperial Knights. Little changes as well, like the legs. They saw that everyone was modifying the legs so that they had that extended section at the back there. In fact, we can do a nice little comparison here. So people were already building out the knee joint so that they had more of that kind of animal digigrade sort of effect to them. They saw that people were doing it and went, okay, we can do that. It's just a small change, but it makes a massive difference to the overall presence and attitude of the model. It looks more aggressive. It looks more dangerous. It looks a bit faster as well somehow. I'm not sure why, but it does. It looks more predatory. The thing I really like about this model is that it's one of the most effective switches to Chaos that I think they've done. Whereas it's recognisably an Imperial Knight. You can tell it's a Knight. You know exactly what it is. But also, even without the spikes on the carapace and on the shoulders, you could take those off. You would still know that it's fallen to Chaos. You would still know that it's a traitor. The torn banner helps a massive amount. The change to the faceplate does a lot. But also just little things like the trim just looks more Chaos. The addition of the pipes into the carapace just breaks it up that little bit. The added bits on the exhaust stacks, again, it's all little things that just add up to going, oh, that's a Knight, oh, that's a Chaos Knight. It's still recognisably what it once was, but also has a really well done corrupted feel that doesn't completely change the feel of the original model. It just twists it. It's by far one of my favourite kind of chaosified things that they've done. I mean, actually, a good example is like this guy. There is a bit of spike going on. There is definitely a bit of spike going on there, but it's not massively overt. The actual silhouette isn't hugely different, but it's clearly not that. It's, same family, different upbringing, I think is the way to describe it. It's just super well done. Super well done. And like having put together a standard Knight and a Chaos Knight, and I'm now putting together, another Chaos Knight, they're both obviously really fun kits to assemble, and they're both easy to assemble. The Chaos one is more fiddly because you've got all these little chains and you've got all these little spikes if you want to put them on there. But yeah, it's just such a good model. I love them. I love them so much. And there's all the adaptability of the Imperial Knight, but more so because it's Chaos, so you can do all sorts of mad stuff to it. Like, for instance, taking the Thunderstrike Gauntlet and replacing it with two Defiler Claws. That's something you can do if you wanted to. I would know, because that's what I did. But yeah, I love it. I love it so much. It's my favourite. It is definitely my favourite. The order is definitely Chaos Knight, the Imperial Knight, then we've got the big chunky boys, and then down to the Armigers / War Dogs. But the Chaos one is just so good, it has to be top of the list. So yeah, those are the Games Workshop Imperial and Chaos Knights. We'll cover the Forge World ones in a different model, because that's a whole different bucket of fish. I don't think that's an actual phrase, is it? But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what your favourite Knight version is in the comments down below. I'm aware that I did lump together all the Paladin and Crusader and Gallant and Warden and Preceptor, and is there another one? Or is that all of them? No, I'm missing one. Whatever, it's fine. I'm aware I've lumped them all together. It's just different weapon loadouts. It's fine. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, what your favourite is. And yeah, feel free to click all of the things, Patreon, video, subscribe, all that stuff. And of course, there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games, whereby if you buy something, I get something for sending you that way. You save a bunch of money, and it supports the channel, and a bit of it goes to charity at the end of the month. It's something you can do if you would like to. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.